Hi everyone, welcome back to the 14-day challenge. I'm very excited. We have Yann Ilunga here with us today. Yann is also on, I think, yesterday or tomorrow's episode. I've been recording these in batches because we're all about time management, and I'm making sure to get as many of these recorded as possible. And this is going to be fantastic because Yann has been helping me with my LinkedIn, and we're going to be talking about that today. So Yann, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Ciao. Hi, Caroline. Thank you so much for having me here. Just a quick side note. I'm currently on the road, so I apologize in advance in case you happen to hear any background noise. That's the fun, I guess, of working remotely. Anyways, again, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk all things LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Yann, you also join us with on this challenge for the video area. And so you specialize in video and LinkedIn. And I think the great thing about that is that they both sort of intermix these days. So 5 years ago, LinkedIn wasn't really big on video, whereas now it is. So I think today we are going to be touching on video as well. And yeah, like you said, all things LinkedIn. So I'm really excited. And let's get into it. We have been working together on my LinkedIn. Let's sort of run through. Today's episode is really about what people can do to take action immediately on their LinkedIn. So first of all, what I want to ask is who should be using LinkedIn for their business?
That's a great question. And perhaps I should say everybody should use LinkedIn. Well, not really. But this is what I would say, all jokes aside. If you are a service provider in the B2B space, if you have a B2B company, then LinkedIn is a must. Depending on your business, it may be the top platform. It may be one of the top platforms, plural, that you're going to use. But I think that if your prospects are business people, then there are very good chances that they are on LinkedIn. And one of the cool things about LinkedIn is that it's actually a platform that we're really underutilizing. I'm generalizing here a little bit, but it's true. I think most LinkedIn users are not leveraging the platform to the fullest, which is good news for us, which means that there is a lot of untapped potential on LinkedIn when it comes to creating business opportunities and generate sales.
Fantastic. So let's just run through that quickly because I want to get into what we did for my business because I think that's really interesting. But sort of let's give an overall, a lot of the people listening are either going to be service providers, they might be coaches, they might be dentists. How could they use LinkedIn for their business? Sort of an overall idea, because I think everyone gets a little bit scared of LinkedIn. They just sort of think, I put my resume up there, people might get me, like if I'm looking for a job, I might just have my profile there if I'm looking for a job. But I think that it can be used in such a better way than that.
The first thing is to undergo a small mindset shift and really move from passively using LinkedIn or using LinkedIn as a sort of resume to actually being active on LinkedIn. And what do I mean by active? I mean growing your network, working on growing your network, not only in terms of quantity, the number of people you have in it, but also the quality. When is the last time you've interacted with somebody who's part of your LinkedIn network? You want to make sure that you do that with new connection as well as with connections that have been part of your network for weeks, months, or even years. In addition to growing your network and nurturing it, I would also recommend focusing on commenting. Commenting is often an afterthought, even though it's actually a very powerful or potentially can be a very powerful asset. And I'm happy to unpack this concept further if you'd like and if we get the chance.
Yeah, definitely. I know that when you gave me some tips about LinkedIn, and we'll talk about what you helped me with, but that was one thing is about commenting, and I really got into the commenting side of it. And it is amazing with how many people are actually responding to my comments. And I really think that's got to do with the fact that it's still such a barren landscape, LinkedIn, that people are putting up a lot of content, but there's still not many people replying to content. So if you're going to put a comment on someone's content, they love it because they're not getting 500 comments. They might get a couple of comments and they're like, yeah, someone commented, I'm going to actually engage with that person. So I think that's a really good, this challenge is really about the easiest way people can take action with LinkedIn. So I want this challenge to be as simple as possible. And maybe let's just jump into that. That's probably something I was going to usually keep till the end. But do you think commenting could be one of the main ways that people could just instantly get some results on LinkedIn?
Yes, I do. Before I dive into the answer, I want to give credit where credit is due because this is something I learned from Yann Ilunga, who is a LinkedIn expert, and he often talks about how powerful commenting can be. And if you think about it, when we think about commenting, it tends to be an afterthought. First, there is content, and then maybe, if we're lucky, there is commenting. But here's the thing, if you think about it, if you publish 10 posts on LinkedIn tomorrow, that's spam or borderline spam, or a lot of spam depending. Whereas if you post, let's say 25 comments, that makes you a very good networker. So you see there is an imbalance, because we're putting more emphasis, we're giving more importance to content, to posts, that they're actually the one thing that we need to sort of keep the temperature down with, because otherwise we become spammers. Whereas with commenting, which can really turn us into very good networkers and also people who generate leads through LinkedIn, it's something that we don't think about, or when we do, it's really in very small doses, which is sort of counterintuitive if you think about what I've just told you. And in case you're wondering, no, I'm not saying that you should post 25 comments per day on LinkedIn, but what you want to do is be strategic. You want to share, publish strategically thought comments. And I can give you a practical example. I have a client who works in the auctions and fundraising space, and just last week we were talking about engagement on LinkedIn, because he got a pretty good engagement from a post. He got some shares, comments, likes, reactions, and he was asking me, how can I really capitalize on that? And what I recommend he did was to look at different levels of engagement, so the shares, the reactions, and the comments, and then he tapped into the power of commenting to engage people who signal some sort of interest, again by putting a thumbs up, a like, a heart, leaving a comment, or resharing his post. And when we're talking about commenting here, we're not saying things like great post or well done, because those don't really lead to anything. And Yann Ilunga, who I mentioned a moment ago, suggest asking yourself a question before leaving a comment that will really help you yield results from commenting on LinkedIn. And it's this: whenever you want to post something, ask yourself, is my comment gonna be useful only to the person who published the post? Is it only for him or for her? Or is my comment gonna be relevant and useful for everybody who may have read, left a thumbs up, or left a comment to the post? And ideally, you want your comments to fall in the latter, in the second category. So as much as possible, your comments should be addressed to and be relevant and useful for people who have experienced, let's say, the LinkedIn post. So going back to the client I mentioned a moment ago, in his post he was talking about a strategy he recently saw at I think it was a fundraiser, and he simply shared it, and people left comments, shared, and so forth. So what I recommend he did was to actually take a look at the people who left comments and see, are they good fit when it comes to his ideal customer persona, and if so, to start to engage with them. Ideally, he would want to piggyback on their comment and ask them a follow-up question. For example, to somebody, he may have said something like, well, you've been in this space for 10 years. Is there any additional interesting strategy you have come across recently? Something like that. So you can start to engage people and tap into commenting by following up to a comment with a question. And if you want to make it even more engaging and more of a conversation, you can even tag somebody else in your comment. So you can piggyback, or your comment could piggyback on somebody else's comment, or you can reply or ask a question and you can bring somebody else in the conversation. Let's say you and I were talking about LinkedIn commenting today. If tomorrow I were to leave a comment to somebody's post about LinkedIn commenting, guess what? I would tag you and I would say something like, yeah, Caroline and I were just talking about it yesterday. Or, hey Caroline, remember how we were talking about LinkedIn commenting? Well, check this out because this unpacks that even further. So you see, we go from potentially me just addressing the person who published the post or the person whose comment I'm leaving an answer to or a reply to a place that includes you. So it becomes a three-way conversation. And if I can think of more people, I can potentially add 2, 3, 4, or however many people to the conversation. The important thing is that they need to be people where this makes sense. So not just randomly tagging people like it used to be a practice on a platform like Twitter, for example, but you want to handpick the people you tag, and you want to basically give them a reason why you are tagging them, so that the tag, the comment, the content, the post becomes relevant. And the final thing I would add to this is, how can you actually find content to comment, posts to comment, especially when you're getting started? Maybe you may not get engagement like that client of mine did. So if you're in a different situation and your posts aren't really getting engagement, how can you actually leverage commenting? Well, you can look, or you can tap into two sources. The first one are your contacts, your prospects, the prospects that are on LinkedIn. And you want to start to look at, okay, what are they posting? What is happening in terms of conversations? Obviously, relevant conversations for you. And then you want to enter those conversations. Remember, you can tag, bring in some other people as well to make it a more fulfilling experience, a more enriched experience, I would say. Then the second source you can sort of tap into are quote unquote gatekeepers. And these are people who have your ICP, your ideal customer persona, your prospects among their contacts, their connections in their audience. And how can you find that? Let's say you, Caroline, for example, were a gatekeeper for my type of clientele. What I would do is I would enter in the search bar of LinkedIn. And by the way, you can do this with LinkedIn free, so you don't need premium Sales Navigator. I would enter the keyword, let's say coach. I would use specific filters or parameters. Maybe it's a specific location. And if you look at the list of filters or parameters on LinkedIn, you're going to find one that says follower of. So if I click that and I enter Caroline Balinska, now I'll have a list of all people who are coaches and sort of reflect all the other parameters I've put and who are followers of Caroline. Once I have that list, I can now go through Caroline's content and try to find, have those people left a comment there? And if they have, then I can start to engage with them. And guess what? After 1 or 2 exchanges, I could send them a personalized connection request with saying something like, hey John, after having a back and forth with you, I thought to connect with you. Or, hey, thanks so much for the exchange. It was very valuable. I thought to send you a connection request. Something along those lines. So you see, with commenting, you can actually not only increase engagement, but you can also use it as a strategy to sort of break the ice. And then when you reach out to somebody because you want to connect with them, you're not a stranger, but you are somebody that they already know a little bit.
Fantastic. So what would be content ideas? So I think that a lot of people get overwhelmed with creating so much content, and I'm telling people to do as least as possible. So how could we sort of have minimal amounts of extra content, maybe using other content we've already created, but not all content is right for LinkedIn. So is there sort of some ideas for content people could use?
Yes, absolutely. If you think about it, case studies tend to focus on the main outcome we've helped a client with. But if you go back and reflect a little bit, you may see that there are some smaller goals that you've helped them achieve. And actually, each of those goals can be a valuable resource, a valuable nugget, a valuable piece of content potentially that would be worth creating. So if you go through your list of case studies, clients you've worked with, sure, look at the main thing you helped them achieve, but then also look at the smaller goals, the smaller outcomes, because you may have some nuggets there that can be very, very useful to use in your content, being posts or even in your LinkedIn comments. So I think case studies are very good, and you can also use yourself as a case study. If, for example, you have implemented a strategy and it worked really well, or it didn't work, or if you're actually experimenting, so you're testing something as we're speaking, so to say, then you can use that in your content as well. I think sharing wins and losses, it's good, but even sharing the process and the progress, it's a very good idea when it comes to your content on LinkedIn. And obviously content repurposing. As you said, Caroline, taking a piece of content, maybe it's a video or something like that, and repurposing it. So representing some of the nuggets in there in different forms, maybe it's a series of clips. It's a very effective way to be strategic. And I know this is something you've talked about in one of your previous episodes about, okay, creating a 20 to 30 minute long video per month and dissecting that, turning that content, those nuggets, into individual clips. So from that one core piece of content, people potentially walk away with 10, 15, 20 or more micro pieces of content, which is really, really valuable and powerful. And it's also a very clever way to approach content creation in a strategic and effective way. And this works with content curation too, by the way. If you have very good sources of content, you can take, let's say, a video somebody has posted, always give them credit, of course, and then you can repurpose that and represent the different pieces of content. That's also actually a very nice way to give them more and more kudos, so to say, because instead of mentioning them in one piece of content, you mention them in multiple pieces of content. But I would say that when it comes to content overall, the more tangible and concrete it is, the better. Not to say that there isn't room for more generic advice or things like quotes, but generally I think that content like quotes doesn't perform as well as more practical and action-oriented content on LinkedIn, because in the end, if you think about it, the more practical your content is, the more it shows you in action, the higher the chances of that piece of content or that series of pieces of content to be a magnet that attracts your prospects, because they've gotten a sort of preview of you in action and what working with you looks like.
Because that's specifically LinkedIn. People are there for business purposes, not so much for the inspirational quotes like they are on Instagram. Yeah. Posting something, is it better to post it in a group or on your own profile? So what would work better?
Your own profile, it's a very good thing to actually publish on your profile because it helps you keep it active. So if somebody visits it, is like, oh, okay, this person is pretty active on LinkedIn. He or she is sharing advice on a regular basis. When it comes to groups, and I think the same applies to Facebook groups as well, I would have a different approach than what people tend to have. And I tie that into my experience having my own Facebook group. I used to have a Facebook group in the podcasting space with close to 5,000 members. And the focus there was really on education, informing people, helping them with the different aspects of podcasting. But many people used it as a sort of billboard. What they would do drive-bys. So they would just join the group and immediately start promoting, even though I also had a no promotion rule for the group. So apart from that, if that's your strategy, so you just say, I join a group and I do a drive-by, I drop my latest podcast episode and then I leave, that's not really gonna go anywhere. And if you think about it, it makes sense because social media platforms want for you to be spending time on them, talking with others, engaging, and so forth. So you can actually leverage groups, but if you're more strategic in your thinking, you can think about the admin or admins first. If you are able to, quote unquote, make friends with them, maybe they're going to be the ones who offer you the opportunity to be in the spotlight. They may do a Facebook Live if we're talking about Facebook groups, or a live stream in a LinkedIn group. Maybe they host Q&A sessions or something like that. And remember, the admin is a person that their community, the group, knows, like, and trust. So if you are able to get in the spotlight through an introduction of the admin, things are going to change. In addition to that, when it comes to LinkedIn groups or really any other sort of online community, so I'm going to extend the conversation here even outside of the LinkedIn boundaries, you can use a two-step approach. So let's say this episode here was a piece of content we wanted to share, and somebody asked a question about LinkedIn commenting. What I would do is I would give them an answer pretty straight to the point without too much bells and whistles, and then I will tell the person, this was just a quick answer. If you want more in-depth information, I actually have a video that unpacks this topic further. Happy to send it to you if you like. And always make sure that you check the group rules, because some groups don't allow for promotional links or links of any sort. So you want to check that first. Anyways, with this strategy, what you're doing is you're helping the person and you're letting them know that, hey, this was just the appetizer. I'm really a foodie here, so I'm gonna tie this to food. This was just an appetizer. If you want the main course, I could definitely send it your way. And if the person tells you yes, then you can share it through a comment or with a DM. And that's gonna position you as somebody that first and foremost provides value, instead of just like dropping randomly podcast episodes or videos or links to any other piece of content you have just because you're hoping to get new eyeballs to exploit LinkedIn groups. It doesn't really work, that strategy. But having this two-step strategy definitely can have a bigger impact. And also it's something that you don't need to go overboard with. You can just focus on your ICPs. So if you see that a group is very active, just look at questions of people that seem to be good fit when it comes to your ideal clients, and then address their questions.
No, I love that, because I think that's even more of the pull marketing. Yeah, they're coming to you. You're sprinkling them a little bit of information, and then they're reaching out of, oh, thank you for that information. And I'm finding that a lot in Facebook groups, that I post a question about something, and usually it's something like a tech-based question in certain groups, and I get suddenly about 50 DMs from people saying, I can help you. This is how much my fee is per hour. And it's like, I wasn't asking for anyone to help me. I was literally asking, I wasn't asking to pay someone. I just wanted the question answered because I know the rest of it. And I find it a little bit, it's too push, rather than people. And none of those people answered my question. Not one of those people put a comment underneath my question and gave me any information. And it's so true. If someone would have answered my question and then reached out to me via DM and been like, oh, actually, I answered your question, but if you want some more help, here's, my fee, or I can work with you or something, I would have taken that with a lot more respect than just you're just spamming me now because you saw that I had a question. So yeah, I think that that's a really good strategy. I want to get into a little bit about what you did with me. So let's sort of talk about that in a bit of detail, because I think that's really interesting. I've been on LinkedIn for many, many years. I've never, ever used it. I came back from my maternity leave and I was like, okay, we connected again after we've known each other for many years. And you were like, Caroline, your LinkedIn, you need to fix it. So we got together and you worked on my LinkedIn. And I want you to go through what I was doing wrong in the first place, what you've done, and then we'll just have a chat about what's actually, how effective it's been for me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, I would say that it was a lot of fun to work with you on your LinkedIn profile, and it's great that not only you have implemented the things we have discussed in our work together, but you've also gotten some results. That's great stuff. So now to really answer your question, I really see your optimized profile as the foundation upon which we build anything else, whether it's you want to grow your network, you want to grow it more in terms of interactions, you want to leverage commenting. If you have an optimized profile, it's going to position you in the best possible way for anybody who is going to be around your LinkedIn, especially people who don't know you yet. I have to say your LinkedIn profile was already pretty good compared to other profiles I've seen in my work. I think the common thread or the biggest mistake I see with LinkedIn profiles is that they are self-centered. They are about the person instead of being prospect-centric, because I could be the most interesting person in the world, but I'm not going to be interesting to you unless I'm in a context that makes sense to you. And I see this being visible in two parts of LinkedIn profiles. The first one is the headline. How many times have we seen headlines like coach, founder of? If your current headline is saying founder of, just know that you're wasting some digital real estate. It's one thing if your company is a big company that everybody knows, Amazon, Apple, and so forth, then it would make sense. But if you have a company like mine, most people may be like, well, I don't know this company. So you're actually wasting some parts of your headline. And what I'm saying by wasting is that when you share a comment, people will see your headline. And if you have a very long headline, they will only see the first few words. So if your first few words say, in my case, for example, founder at 360 Entrepreneur, is not really going to do much in terms of being a magnet that attracts my ideal clients. So if your current headline says something like dentist, therapist, founder at, try to really expand on it. And here's a structure you can use that I think is very, very helpful in turning your headline into a magnetic LinkedIn headline. You want to have a structure that goes something like, I help blank meaning your target clients, achieve this, through that. So for example, in my case, it could be something like, I help coaches generate quality leads from LinkedIn through video and comments. Now, if that was the only thing you saw, you would know that this person helps people like you doing what? Generating quality leads on LinkedIn. How? Through video and commenting. And it goes without saying that you can have a second part of the headline too, and you can check there is a character limits, and you can use AI. Well, you can try to put it on LinkedIn, or you can even use AI. I typically, when I want to update headline, I just drop it in ChatGPT and I ask, can you check that it's within the character limits? If I remember correctly, I think it's 220, but keep in mind that these things change, so take that with a grain of salt. Anyways, I would say structure your headline and start it with that. Remember, long headlines get cut, so people won't see the whole thing. And then the second part of your headline, you can include things that are about you, things like author, podcaster, international speaker. Then yes, those things reinforce the first part of your headline. So helping prospects achieve blank by doing that. Okay, so I help coaches generate quality leads on LinkedIn through video and commenting. You see, this headline, sure, I say I help or helping, but it's really about prospects. So if you were somebody who wanted to generate leads on LinkedIn, or if you're somebody who has been using video on LinkedIn or comments and hasn't gotten any results, you would know that, oh, okay, this person seems like the kind of person I want to pay attention to. And that's exactly what we want people to do. And especially if we're leaving a comment on somebody else's post, a person can see a headline like that and be like, oh, let me check this Yann guy. And they will click on my profile. That if it's optimized, then it will draw them, have them gravitate toward me even further. And if we look at your LinkedIn headline, Caroline, after our work, it now reads, and I have a screenshot in front of me, it now reads, helping entrepreneurs and mompreneurs get more clients with less hassle with AI, automation, and high-level lead generation strategies. So exactly the structure we've just talked about. Who do you work with? Entrepreneurs and mompreneurs. What do you help them do? Get more clients with less hassle. How? Or through which channels, through which means? AI, automation, and high-level lead generation strategies. And then the second element of a LinkedIn profile that I really see underutilized, and it's again mainly because we make it all about ourselves, is the About section. And that's a mistake you can also see often on about pages on website, where are all about us, me, when actually they should be about me in the context of a prospect. So in other words, my about page, for example, sure, or my about section rather, I can add, I'm Yann Ilunga, I'm a consultant, I've been a podcaster since 2014, I've published over 400 episodes, I'm an international speaker, I've spoken here in Europe, in Australia, in the States. I could put all of those things, but if I start with those are gonna be irrelevant, because the prospect is gonna be, why do I care? So what you wanna do instead is you wanna make sure that the first part of your about section actually talks about the prospects, their pain points, and you want to talk about them in their words, so that when somebody reads it, they're like, oh, this guy gets me. Let me read, let me keep reading. Oh yeah, he's talking about it exactly the way I'm talking about it. He really sees the struggles that I'm having. So if you're able to have people go through that reaction, then you can have those elements we were talking about earlier of social proof that reinforce, that strengthen your position. But your about section shouldn't start with, I have X number of experience in this field and I've done this and I've won that award. No, start with, what is the pain point that keeps your prospects up at night? You know what it is? Just touch upon that pain. Let them know that you understand it, you get it. And then double down on that even further. Let them know, yeah, I get it. Not only I understand the pain point, but I understand the consequences it causes. And then you expand from there. So I would say the headline and the about section are the two areas of a LinkedIn profile that I see really being underutilized and not really optimized, because they're optimized for me instead of being optimized for the prospects. So I would recommend everybody here take a moment, look at their headline, their about section and try to make them as prospect centric as possible.
No, I love that. So I think that the takeaway from today's episode is that commenting is really important. But if you're going to leave a comment and then someone sees that comment and they might say, that's an interesting perspective or an interesting comment, then they suddenly see your name, and next to your name actually has the description about you. And if that description is, like, for instance, how you helped me, I think mine used to say something like podcaster marketer. And you've just read out what mine says now. So now if I've left a comment on a marketing, maybe a mumpreneur group, and I've left a comment like, hey, I know what it's like to be a mum and have to spend so many hours, looking after your kids while trying to work. And I write some sort of comment and people go, oh, that's a good comment. That's a good way to see it. And then suddenly they see Caroline Balinska and no longer saying podcaster marketer. It now says, I help mompreneurs with less hustle. Then someone's like, oh, hang on a second. That person actually is not only writing a comment that I agree with, but they're actually doing something that I want to know more about or I need help with. And then they go to my about section, and my about section, thanks to you, now sounds fantastic. And it lets people know that I'm there to help them. So I think that all works. Like you said, there's no point doing the comments if you don't have your profile description right, and if you don't have your about section right. And now you actually help me. I've got a button going straight to a discovery call, some sort of discovery call I've got at the moment. And then it all links in together. So now when I comment, I've got people, and it's worked for me. So I said that I was going to bring up how it's been going. I think within 24 hours of doing that, I actually got someone book my discovery call, like within 24 hours. So it definitely works. I'm, very impressed. I don't think I've had anyone reach out to me before that saying I want to work with you on LinkedIn, because I wasn't doing the commenting. I didn't have a good profile. Now, the last thing is we have gone way over time, and everything we've spoken about, I wanted to cover. I want to get you back another time because I really want to get into, you do this amazing strategy when it comes to reaching out to people via video. We're doing that with me at the moment. We're creating videos and doing that through LinkedIn. So that's like a whole strategy. So I want to get you back on just discussing that particular strategy as well. But if people want to reach out to you, I highly recommend, if anyone's listening, and we didn't even discuss this beforehand, but I'm going to do it. Working with you, getting you to help me with my LinkedIn, where you went through and you did everything first, you did all the research, and then we sat down together and you walked me through everything and you gave me examples and helped me actually plan everything out. And you did so much of the hard work for me. So I think that was the part for me of like, oh, I've got to sit down and write it all out. You did all the writing part for me. So if anyone wants to work with you, I highly recommend your LinkedIn service. Do you want to let people know where they can get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you?
Yes, absolutely. I think the best way to actually reach out is by you getting some resources. If you head over to yannilunga.com/LinkedIn growth, so that's YANNILUNGA.com/LinkedIn growth, all one word. If you have it over there, you can sign up. You're going to get some resources and you get emails actually from me. So you can just reply to any of those emails. And if you do, please let me know that you came through Caroline, through this show, and I'll be gladly address any LinkedIn questions you may have.
Fantastic. And I will put your website in the show notes, in the description, because I know that the spelling is going to be hard for some people. So it'll be in the description and they can get in touch with you. So Yann, thank you so much for joining me. I always love talking to you. So thank you so much for your advice. And I look forward to having you back at another time.
No, the pleasure was all mine. So thank you, Caroline. And most importantly, congrats on the launch of your new show and best of luck with it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Yann. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. Bye.